Good morning, lovely people. How are you all doing today? I certainly hope you are well. I am. I'm having a bit of a cooking session this morning and probably just into this afternoon. The freezer is getting a bit low on ready meals. So I'm hoping today, this will do 4, 8, I'll do another 8, that'll be 16, 2, 6, 30. I'm hoping today to get 32 meals into the freezer. I'm just doing a curry at the moment. I'm doing 2 pots of curry. Right, that's the sweet potato chopped. I've already got some in the back pan. Yeah, and then I'll do another fasolada. I love me fasolada, and then a couple of different soups, so that I'll end up with, this is going to be 8, 6, about 16 evening meals and 16 soups. So at the moment I've started off with oil and all my different spices. Let that warm. And I'm just, there's a lot in the pans already. Jig the sweet potato around in that oil and spice, let them get nice and coated. And then I'm going to add, that's a tin of chickpeas drained, rinsed for that one. Same for the one on the back. Let's get that in. Splashy. My cardigan came off. I'm getting warm already. Bit of a rinse, and then I've got one of my very last, it's not the last, but we're definitely getting down to the final few of my coco de Pampol from the end of last year. So yeah, I mean they need using up. They would normally, hold on, clunky, they would normally have been used by now. Actually, I think this is Coco Sophie, they're a bit bigger. Yeah, they would have normally been used by now easily, because I would have used them up and then made space for this year's harvest, but of course I didn't have this year's harvest, and that kind of keys into what I want to chat about today. I'm just going to get these on the go and then chat. Oh, there's a bit of grass. I mean, I don't really have the stomach for dealing with grass. The stomach's going to come into it today as well. Okay, so that's all my ingredients in. So it's sweet potato, chickpeas and beans. Yum. And then when I come to eat it, I will have a big portion of steamed greens, chuck them on the top. So at the moment I've got broccoli, so a head of broccoli, it's only going to last a couple of days, and then I'll go out and get some fresh greens in a couple of days, because even if I won't be having this every day, of course, but then when I try and have greens every day. Right, let's just add some stock. That's for that one. I put a timer on this today. Let's just make another pot of stock for the back one. Yeah, so it's really simple. And it's, you know, it's obviously it's nutritious with the pulses. The sweet potato is going to give me a load of vitamin A, beta carotene. Oh, I didn't stir the stock. Multitasking. Whoops. The beans and the chickpeas are obviously going to give me a ton of protein and fibre. The spices have all their phytonutrients in them. Let's just dump that there. But it does lack green, and We should try and have a load of green veg every day too. Right, that will need to come to the simmer. The other morning, this amused me, there's another bit of grass. That's from the Coco de Pampo, or Coco Sophie, whichever one it is. Yeah, I turned my computer on the other morning, and my search bar, where I go to do my search, it comes up as a sort of a news feed page. And the page it came up on, and I did a double take, the headline read, "The new trend of batch cooking." And I thought, there is nothing new about batch cooking. We've been batch cooking forever and ever and ever. So I don't know why they're saying it's a new trend. I've batch cooked my whole life. I mean, it makes economic sense, doesn't it? If you, if there's an offer on a certain veg and you buy a load of those veg, get them cooked up and put in the freezer, it makes time sense. I know a lot of us are time poor. I'm always time poor. It makes sense to have a batch cooking session and get things into the freezer. So later on in the week when you're really busy, there's good nutritious food there for you. You're not going to be tempted by snacking and junk food and quick ultra processed food from the shops. But also for all of those of us who are growers, batch cooking is, not only does it make sense, it's necessary. Whenever we have a glut of something, we need to get it preserved somehow. And, one of the easiest ways to preserve it is have a mammoth cooking session, get it cooked into something and fill the freezer up with gorgeous meals. So yeah, I was a bit perplexed when I read that. I wrote it down, I was so like, what? The new trend of batch cooking. Ain't nothing new about batch cooking. It makes absolute economic sense. Right, so I need to put a timer on these. Hold on a sec, I don't want to forget. It's got to come back, it's got to come up to the simmer. Those beans, I took them out of the freezer last night, but they've been in the cool box, so they're really quite chilly. Shouldn't take too long. Right, let's have a pew, because I want to talk today. I've been having thoughts about food shopping in general, specifically to me, but I think there may be some stuff in this that's useful for other people too. So let's have a pew. Let these just do their own thing. We can have a chat. When we've finished chatting, these will be finished. I can get them divvied out into freezer-sized portions, quickly wash my pans and start on my next meals to cook. Right, come on, let's have a sit. I was going to say, ignore the mess behind me. There's not too much, is there, hopefully? Right, so, thoughts. Obviously, since giving up my garden this year, there's all sorts of thoughts here. I've made some notes. I'm going to try and keep it concise and precise in the things I want to say. But as a general thing, this year, obviously, I've had to do a lot more shopping in terms of my veg shopping because I don't have a garden. Also, sorry, bear with me a second. I'm so sorry about that. An email popped up and I saw it in the corner of my eye and I thought, oh, good grief, what's this? I'm going to deal with it later. Yes, so without the garden, shopping, buying way more of my own food. And of course, this cost of living crisis, the cost of food keeps going up. So I've gone from having a weekly budget of 10 quid and then I pushed it up to 12 quid in the spring. And then gradually that's crept up to more like 15 quid now. So it's been on my mind, I'm definitely feeling that change of not having the garden. I don't regret giving the garden up at all, of course, but I'm feeling that change. Also, in the background, all sorts of books I've been reading this year. And I read a lot of books about sort of rural affairs and farming in the UK. And that's been really thought-provoking. And I was reading one book in particular. So a couple of the recent books are Wilding, The Return of Nature to a British Farm, and I Contain Multitudes. And this is all about microbes everywhere, in us, on us, in the whole universe. Now, mind-blowing book. They both deserve way more attention than I'm going to give them right now. So I'm going to do a video tomorrow about these books and a couple of other things besides. But in doing all this reading and my own thoughts anyway, I thought I've got to a stage where I've just felt like I've come so far away from me in terms of my shopping and eating. I need to get back to me. And it's to do with, it's to do with that process of being on the land and in touch with the land and growing my own food. And thinking about that on the larger scale, of thinking about our farmers and what they do for us, but also thinking about the fact that, say organic, all my veg were organic in the garden, and now hardly any of my veg are organic. It's kind of, it's a big global thought. It's kind of far-reaching, so that's why I'm going to try and narrow it down. I'm not making sense. I realise I'll make sense when I tuck into my notes. But the other thing, excuse me, I need to go. The other thing that occurred to me, I was thinking about it the other night, about how my budget has gone up to 15 quid. And I got into the habit, and I think this might be a bit of a YouTube thing as well, of, trying to show the frugal recipes. I've got into the habit of buying cheap food. And I know a lot of people have too. But, going to Lidl, buying the cheapest thing and trying to keep my budget below 15 quid. And the thoughts that have been going around in my mind, one of them is, how absurd for me, and like I said, this is about me and the way I shop and the way I want to shop and eat in future. How bananas that I'm only giving myself 15 quid a week as a food budget. Surely what we spend on food, surely that should be one of the biggest ticket items every month. Food is probably the most important thing we spend money on. I mean, I know outside of, say, mortgage and what have you, but, I can go without heat for a few days. I don't like being cold, it makes me a bit grumpy, but I can go without heat. I can go without clothes. If I didn't have any clothes on, it's not going to kill me. Wouldn't be comfortable, but it's not going to kill me. We can't live without food. We have to eat. If we don't eat, we die. So it makes sense, therefore, that this crucially important thing we do of feeding ourselves, that we give that as much money as we possibly can. And I know there are some people who can't afford it. Like I said, I'm talking about me and what I can afford. And I can, especially, once I've moved and I'm not saving so hard, I can afford to give myself a much bigger food budget, and I want to, because I want to change the way I've been shopping. So, and this, like I said, it's tied in with giving up my garden. It's tied in a lot with the books I've been reading about British farming and the state of British farming, and I really, really want to support our farmers. So I've picked a few topics to talk about: food waste, food miles, organic food, but also at the end I'm going to tag on at the end gut health, because that's the other thing, isn't it? It's not just the fact that without food we die, but it's also about the food that we put in. That, how can I be the healthiest I can be? I mentioned it recently, as I'm getting older, it's taking me longer to recover from things. So perhaps I need to be thinking about food as medicine again. And look, I know there's going to be people out there who are going to say, well, it's all right for you buying your fancy pants organic food if you can afford to, but I can't. You know what? I get it. This is my decision for me. So, on the subject of food waste, and this kind of comes back to our British farming and how much the world produces enough food for everybody plus some. So it's crazy that there are people without food. So I was thinking about food waste. And in my house, this is a no food waste house. So how can we avoid food waste in our own home, as in when we're shopping, at the end of the week, there's stuff that's gone off and we're chucking out. So the first thing I would say, the one really simple way to avoid food waste is to meal plan. Or as I'm doing today, I'm batch cooking, and that will come into my meal plan. But before you even go to the shops, create a meal plan for the week. And you don't have to have something different every single day. You don't have to suddenly become really chefy. You can have the same meal on a couple of nights of the week. You can have a meal which starts, one night it starts as a spag bol, and then the next day, with the addition of spices and some kidney beans, what have you, you turn it into a chili. But create a meal plan and make a really good estimate of, for each meal, what are the ingredients. And if you're new to this, one of the things you can do on a pad of paper is write down your meals. Let's say, starting with our evening meals, write down your 7 evening meals, but with a gap between each one. And then next to the meal, write down all the ingredients that you need for it. So then you've got that list of ingredients is going to be the basis of your shopping list. So if you've got a meal that you need 1 potato in it, and then you've got a meal 3 or 4 days later and you need 4 potatoes, and then so you go down. So at the end of it, you can add up and think, right, I need 7 potatoes this week. I can get a bag of 8 potatoes, or I can buy 7 potatoes loose, whatever it is. Likewise, with your carrots, with your celery, with your onions, going through the entire week's menu and all your ingredients that listed at the side, create a new list, and that's your shopping list. I know that I'm going to need 5 white onions this week, 7 potatoes, 2 kilos of carrots, 2 heads of celery, for example. That's for a bigger family, obviously. When you shop with a specific, like that, shopping list that's based on a meal plan, by the end of the week, there shouldn't be any waste, because you've only bought what you actually need. So I highly recommend meal planning. And as I've said previously, if your meal plan includes, on a couple of nights, you're going to have a head of broccoli, but you get to the shop and you think, oh, well, a head of cabbage is half price and it's cheaper than the broccoli. Swap the broccoli for the cabbage, so you can get a bit of a bargain, but you're still don't buy the cabbage as well as the broccoli, because the chances are, if the cabbage isn't in the meal plan, you're going to end up not using it, and you think, oh, it's only 50p, it's a bargain. But if at the end of the week it's turning to mush in the bottom of your fridge, it wasn't a bargain, it was a complete waste of money. Likewise, by the end of the week, if there are a few bits and bobs of leftovers, I'm sure many of you do this, some of you someone called it the other day Friday soup, using whatever's in the fridge. I know a lot of you call it fridge soup. Whatever's in the fridge at the end of the week, in terms of your fresh produce that's not going to keep, get it made into a soup before the end of the week. And if you haven't got time to make the soup, if you've literally only got, say, 15 minutes one morning, on Friday morning, you've only got 15 minutes, grab whatever veg is there. You'd preferably do it by the Wednesday or Thursday. I'm talking about people who shop on a Saturday, by the way. So by Wednesday or Thursday, you're going to have a clear idea. Oh, there's going to be a couple of carrots left over. There might be a spud left over. I haven't got time to make anything with them. While they're still fresh, rather than on Friday when they might be a bit wilted, just get them chopped up and slam them in the freezer. And it's the basis for a soup or a stew at some point in the future. Don't be throwing anything away. Ugh, no. What a waste. It's a waste of your money, and it's a waste of our farmers' time. They've worked hard to produce that food for us. Now, on the subject of food waste, there's a couple of other things to consider. So I've got a really dry mouth this morning. One of the things, I'll come to that later. Yeah, I know, just to say, I do find that Lidl veg go off quite quickly. I find that 3 or 4, well, some of them, not all of them, but some things go off quite quickly. So I think to myself, I might need to do 2 shops in the week. I might need to shop again on Wednesday. for stuff. Like the broccoli, I find their broccoli goes off really quickly. So if I've bought it on Saturday, I need to have used it by Monday. So just keep an eye on that. But yes, in terms of food waste, I'm sure you all know there's all sorts of apps there. I did some checking last night. I put into my search engine food waste apps, so you can do the same. I don't have a smartphone, so I don't have apps, but I looked for these for you guys anyway. You might find them useful. There's one called Too Good To Go. There's one called Olio, one called Karma. There's loads. The thing with these apps is they alert you, I think some of them there's a subscription but then it's free. They alert you to food that's about to be thrown away that evening by shops, restaurants, cafes, that sort of thing. So if a restaurant has got leftover food, if a cafe's got leftover food, they put it onto those apps and you can go and pick it up for a bargain. The only thing with those is it tends to be stuff that's been made up already. So things like sandwiches, you know, the supermarkets, they've got leftover sandwiches at the end of the day, or there's leftover sort of fresh pastries, cakes, that sort of thing. So yes, there are bargains to be had there, but bear in mind with these, it tends to be ultra processed food. It's food that's been made, you don't know the ingredients, yeah, it's ultra processed. And we all know by now how we really need to minimise the amount of ultra processed foods we eat. So if you're a cook like me, those apps, they're no good. I don't want sandwiches, I want ingredients. So another thing to look out for, of course, Lidl do their £1.50 box. I've only seen them a couple of times. I just don't have the right timing for it. I think some of the other supermarkets, I think Asda do Wonky veg boxes. I'm a huge fan of the Wonky veg box, talking of waste, because these are veg that supermarkets have changed the face of British farming in the last 40 years. Supermarkets want things that are so perfect, they're almost cartoonishly perfect. Our gut doesn't have eyes, you know, so if you've got a wibbly wobbly carrot, who cares? It's going to be chopped up anyway to put into your cooking. It's certainly going to be chopped up by the time it reaches your stomach. But recently, some of the supermarkets have slightly eased a bit and are now offering Wonky veg boxes. So our farmers don't have to throw that food away before it even gets to the supermarket. There is a huge amount of waste at the point of manufacture, as it were, at the point of the farm, because they simply can't give, you know, that mountain of parsnips, they can't get them into the supermarkets because the supermarkets go, oh, we don't like the shape, we don't like the colour, and it's perfectly good food. So yay for Lidl's. The Lidl box, just to say the £1.50, it's all stuff that's right at the end of its shelf life. So if you do pick up a Lidl box, be prepared to cook all the veggies that day. Again, it's coming back to this batch cooking thing. Get it all cooked and in the freezer, or just get that veg chopped and prepped and into the freezer raw to use later in the week. The Wonky veg boxes, of course, they are fresher, they're going to last you longer. If you don't have, so excuse me, I think it's the smell of cooking is making my mouth, yeah, it should be salivating, it's drying up, I want to eat. If you don't have any Wonky veg box schemes in your supermarkets, all our supermarkets are different. You know, people say to me about recycling the plastic bags that veg come in. None of my supermarkets do that. So all our supermarkets are different, and you might not be able to get Wonky veg in your shop. Buying Wonky veg is specifically to support our farmers. There's all sorts in today. I want it all to be about supporting our farmers and supporting ourselves as best we can. So if you can't get it in your shop, there is a subscription service I checked out. It's called Oddbox. Now there are all sorts of veg box schemes out there. One of the things I want to focus on in future with my shopping is that as much as possible I'm buying British. So the Odd Box promise that there are no air miles in their produce, so 0 air miles. Great. I'm going to come on to food miles in a second. But the Odd Box scheme, they have the prices range from £11.49 to £12.99. The £11.49 one, which is probably what I would go for, is the mixed fruit and veg box. You get 9 veg, excuse me, 9 types of veg and 4 types of fruit. It's not just 4 pieces of fruit, it's 4 different types of fruit. Or you can go for a straight veg box. I'm going to round it up and say it's 12 quid, and that gives you 9 different types of veg. Or the just fruit box is £13, and that's 6 different types of fruits. And obviously it's seasonal. You can also pick your own box. You can do swapsies, and you can do add-ons, like if you need a little bit extra. So as a subscription service, I thought that one looks really good if you're not fussed about it not being organic. You can skip a week. So if you find actually a week of one box is lasting me 2 weeks, you might be a single household like me, and one box lasts you 2 weeks. So it looks really flexible and useful, especially that you can do swapsies and include add-ons and what have you. So yeah, I think they're well worth a look at. I just was talking about there's no air miles. This is another thing. So I don't buy avocados. I don't buy bananas. I actually can't remember the last time I ever had a banana. That's the truth. I certainly don't buy them. I've never been particularly partial to bananas. I might not have had a banana for over 30 years. No shock horror. Avocados, no, they're not on the menu. I try anyway to have as few food miles as possible. And when I'm talking about food miles, I'm talking about the fact that the further something's got to travel, the chances are it's going to have refrigeration, which takes energy. The chances are it's, there's going to be some kind of pollution going on with that transport. So shrinking the food miles in terms of pollution, but also, again, back to supporting our British farmers, especially those small mixed farms who are trying so hard to do the right thing. I'm not talking about this mass industrial agriculture, which is so damaging. Those smaller farms, let's support them. So yeah, in terms of food miles and going forward, well, it's my habit anyway, I'm going to be trying even harder to think, can I get this as locally as possible? I mean, I'm on the border with Kent. It's the Garden of England. It's one of our areas of, fruit production in particular. Can I shrink the food miles? But not only the miles of my food travelling to the shop, also just little things like, and this is my habit, I walk to the shops. I've never used a car to go shopping. Imagine if everybody for just one day did their shopping on foot. What a huge difference that would make in terms of pollution. If we all just said, leave the car at home, I'm going to do my shopping on foot. For those who are physically able, of course, there's always going to be someone who isn't physically able. I'm talking about those of us. Look, I've got wonky knees and I still manage to do all my shopping on foot. Get into your local shopping streets. Never mind the big out-of-town supermarkets. Shop local, shop small, shop on foot. Yay! So one of the big things, and this is why this is definitely going to put the price of my shopping up. I need to get back to organic food. And look, it's not... I'm sorry, I've got this picture of health. A lot of people over the years have said to me, oh, but organic food's been proven to be no more nutritious than regular food.
it's not about that. It's about what we are doing to our environment, what we're doing to our soil. An incredibly precious commodity. We are killing our soil. I'm not going to go on one. If you want to know read this book. I'll be talking about it. It's going in the shop. I've actually got a copy in the shop already. Yeah, it's for me, it's vitally important to, again, support the small farmers, support the organic farmers who are supporting the soil, who are supporting biodiversity, who are increasing biodiversity. I don't want your grandchildren, I don't have children, if I had grandchildren or great-grandchildren, to grow up in a world where they never hear the sound of a skylark, because all of our skylarks have disappeared because there's no habitat for them to live and breed in, and there's no food for them because all their food has been sprayed to death. So, hang on a sec. I hope that's cleared my frog. A vegetarian with a frog in her throat. So yes, there's all sorts of options in terms of organic food. Obviously, it's going to be seasonal. I don't want it imported, if at all possible. Look, in an ideal world, I would only eat organic, locally produced food. That would be it. But it's not always possible. There are a few things that I want to include in my diet which I'm either not going to be able to find an organic version of it yet, who knows, it might change down the line, or I just can't find it locally produced. So this isn't about being perfect and being an angel. I'm not, nobody is. But it's about being more mindful, getting back to being more mindful about my shopping, my food, the whole picture, because I am part of a big picture and I've got my part to play if I can. So yeah, it's just being more mindful with shopping and eating. But there are some organic veg box schemes, so that if, like my Lidl, I get organic carrots, organic broccoli, organic celery, and sometimes organic apples, but that's kind of it with the produce. So if I want to eat organic produce, I'm almost certainly going to have to sign up for a veg box scheme. There are loads. Riverford, Abel and Cole, one that I hadn't heard of before, Sandy Lane Farm. I had a quick look on their website. Not all the produce that's in their veg boxes is from the UK. So in a way, it sort of defeats the point for me of wanting to support a small farm if it's not their own produce. But, you know, I could have a closer look, because maybe 9 items in 10 in the box are from their farm, and maybe it's just one item from somewhere else as an add-on. So actually, yeah, I would want to support their farm. But, you know, have a look. I mean, I'm always saying it's the beauty of the internet, isn't it? We can let our fingers do the walking. They used to do the walking through the yellow pages, but now we can walk online. In terms of markets, for me, there used to be a farmer's market in Crystal Palace. There used to be one up at Dulwich College, only once a month, but they were a couple of weeks apart, so you could time it. I haven't been for ages because, of course, I have my own garden, but I did find with them, especially the ones at Dulwich College, a lot of it was artisan stuff like sausages, and there was a lot of meat produce, artisan cheeses, artisan breads, which were fantastically expensive. And there were only 2 stalls that actually did fresh veggies. That's what I want to go to the market for. I want vegetables. So I don't know if they're still going because I haven't, you know, I didn't need to because of having my own garden. And to bear in mind, if I did go to either of those, it's going to involve the bus. So it's not you know, I'm not doing it on foot. The buses are electric, so that's not quite so bad. Oh, that's the alarm. Hang on, I'm going to have a stir of my things. Give me a sec while I have a stir. We're nearly there. A couple more minutes. Give me a sec. It needs a bit longer. The sweet potato isn't very tender yet. Well, it's getting there. Yes, so I don't know whether I will check those markets out or not. The other thing is here, I've never had a veg box delivery here because my doorstep is on the high street. It would only last 2 seconds. Someone will go, oh, nice veggies, it'll be away. But when I move, I'm going to be on a side street, much quieter. So a veg box delivery would be an option. And then finally, the other thing that I had been thinking about, I mean, I was thinking about it anyway after those antibiotics that I had to have and reading this book, amazing. Just in terms of gut microbiome, I decided to put my big girl pants on and try some kefir. I had tried kefir yogurt. I loved it. It was gorgeous. Now, I had it with blueberries, which of course, they're not in season, so they're imported. So that's a reminder to self. Obviously, next year I need to go foraging for as many berries as I can get my sticky little mitts on and get them frozen so that through the winter I can have yogurt and berries. But yeah, I'm really enjoying kefir yogurt. So I have been having a little bit for breakfast with some berries. Berries are fantastic for us. Just about the best fruit you can eat. And then I started look, because I know that I made a list of things I don't like. I'm not going to do it. Sauerkraut, apple cider vinegar, kimchi and kombucha. Sauerkraut, I keep thinking, you know what, Vivi, maybe try it. But I had a colleague who was also a best friend and he used to eat sauerkraut pretty much every lunchtime. He'd sit next to me at his desk eating it from the jar, and the smell of it alone, But maybe, you know, our tastes do change as we get older. Maybe I would like it now, I don't know. But I don't really want to go there. So what other fermented foods can I think about including in my diet to, you know, because it's so great for our gut. So, okay, the kefir I've got in my diet now, great. Sourdough, of course, sourdough is a fermented product. I didn't think about that. And I do like I love sourdough bread, actually. I've got a bit in now. I don't eat a huge amount of bread, but my preference is that sourdough loaf I get. And then every now and again, if I'm feeling really tight with the budget, I get my day-old bread from my Turkish people. But yeah, sourdough, it's fermented. Olives count as a fermented food. I blooming love olives. So yeah, I'm happy to have a few olives. Now, of course, they're not grown in Britain, but if I'm going to buy olives, at least make sure they're European, so they haven't come too far. And some blue cheeses, it depends on how they've been made, how they've been processed. So a little bit of blue cheese, love a bit of blue cheese, olives, sourdough. It's actually sounding like a really nice lunch. So yeah, I'm going to just make sure, try to have at least one portion of food a day that is fermented in some way or other to just help my gut and improve my gut over time. Because I'm sure that, you know, I haven't felt great for 3 years now, and I'm pretty sure it was having 3 vile, strong, nasty viruses within an 11-month period. I'd hardly got over the first one before I then got that horrible lung infection, and I ended up having 3 weeks of antibiotics with that, and I just getting my strength back from that, and then woof, COVID hit me and I had it. God, I had COVID badly. So I just think let me nurture my body as best as I can. Let's get the fermented foods in, and and just as an overall thing, let me get back to eating organic food. Let me get back to supporting British food producers, our farmers, as much as possible. And of course, it's all going to mean quite a hike in my food budget. But I was thinking, again, looking at figures for once I've moved. I mean, I kind of know my figures already. I'm not going to start spending like mad. I'm never going to spend like mad yet, just in case this sale falls through. And, you know, I'm going to have expenses. I'm going to have to pay my solicitor, and then I'm going to have to pay her again if I have to get another place to find. But once I have moved and I know it's all definite, I've paid my bills, I am happy and willing and able to put my food budget for 1 week up to a whopping £40 if needed. I don't think I will need that much, certainly not every week, but in order to do what I want to do, both for me and for our farmers and for the environment, I think that's possibly what it's going to take, at least sometimes. So we'll see. Like I said, I need to let my fingers do some walking. I need to rethink where I shop and who my suppliers are going to be. And like I said, once I've moved and I've got a doorstep on a side street, I'll be able to have a veg box. Yay! Anyway, look, it's all food for thought, isn't it? It's food for our tummies and food for thought. But I do think, yeah, it's one of the most important things we buy. So why try and spend as little as possible on this incredibly important thing? Like I said though, I am able to put my budget up. I'm fortunate enough to have that bit of wiggle room to put my budget up a bit, so I will. And I'm looking forward to finding new suppliers, finding new stuff out there. We'll see. I'll keep you posted once I've moved. All right, lovelies, I'm going to toddle off. I'm going to go and give my pans another stir and get ready, start prepping my veg now for the next lot of meals I'm going to make, because that will be done shortly. So if I've got all my prep done now, then the minute they're all done, swap pans, clean pans, put them back on the stove, get the next thing going. Yay! I might eat at some point too, getting hungry. Until the next one, lovelies, please look after yourselves. Enjoy being out and about at this time of year if your area is getting a little bit festive and getting that slight cosy feeling going on. Whatever you're up to, try and be happy doing it. See you soon. Cheerio.